Welcome to this preview of AFC Bournemouth versus Tottenham Hotspur on Thursday night at the Vitality. It's fair to say that this is a pivotal match for the Cherries. Later in the video, Sam Davis is going to be on the video providing his team selection along with Craig Beazley. Good luck, good luck, boys, on that one. But for now, let's look at the game ahead with Neil Dawson. So Neil, it's another one of those dreaded 6 p.m. kickoffs. Our last two haven't exactly gone to plan, but are you feeling a little more optimistic given what we saw against Manchester United?
Yeah, I think so. And also a little optimistic in that Tottenham seem to be going through that stage that every Mourinho side go through where the football becomes a little bit stymied and the fans get a little bit critical. Obviously, there's none in the stadium, but I'm sure they still hear that. So it's a good potential time to be playing Tottenham. And nice that we showed a little bit of our old spirit against Manchester United to help us.
When we first played Spurs earlier this season, I think it was one of Mourinho's first games, if not his first game in charge, yep. And we went down 3-2. I mean, we were 3-0 down and then came back to with a sort of flattering scoreline to Harry Wilson goals. Personally, I think the Mourinho factor is the one thing that could work in our favour, because you look at that lineup of strikers that they've got, Kane, Son and Ali, and you think, well, that's probably as good as the three that we played against Manchester United the other day, and we shipped 5 against them. Yeah,
but that's if you think about it, Manchester United hadn't scored 5 at home for 9 years, and a large reason for that was for quite a few of those years, Jose Mourinho was their manager. And I think, so if you look at Tottenham, he's managed to take a forward line that in its day under Pochettino was, arguably as good as Liverpool's forward line in terms of how it could take teams apart. And he's managed to make them look a little bit like our forward line. So I think we've got... you got to cling to hope, and that's my hope. They're not looking at Sheffield United. They just looked really, really poor.
What sort of shape are we going to play, do you think, against them?
Who knows these days, Jeff? Who knows? It could be anything. It looks like Eddie's gone. Eddie plays formations for long periods of time, as we know. He likes to get everyone settled into a rhythm. The last 2 games have been 4-4-2. My anticipation is we will see 4-4-2 again. I just think we'll see Wilson come back for Solanke. 4-4-2 is Eddie's default shit or bust formation that he's used all of his career. Whenever things go wrong, he goes back to that. So it's no surprise. It would be no surprise to me. I think we'll see Wilson ahead of King, and probably Cook and Lerma sitting deep. And Brooks and Stanislas out wide would be.
Well, obviously he's played Josh King on that sort of wide outside left position, which didn't look great in King's first game back, I must say. But maybe that might give Stanislas a bit more flexibility to wander a bit more centrally, which could be good. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, who knows? And then back 4-wise, we're not really sure whether Cook or Mepham will be back. You would think that if one of those is back, Lloyd Kelly's going to move back out to the left and Rico will get benched. What do you reckon about Stacey replacing Smith?
I don't think he'll do it. I think Smith is still a better player, even though he's not in good form. And Smith normally puts in a shift against Tottenham because it's his old club. So I'd be surprised to see that. And I think Stacey wasn't too hot in his last game before he was dropped either. So I think it's a combination of those things. I'd expect Smith to start.
And are you going to keep Rambo in goal instead of Boric?
I think he will, yeah. I don't think he jettisoned him on the back of one game, and I think he would worry about. Artur Boric's got great form against Spurs, hasn't he? Wasn't there one game where he gave him 4 goals? I think, wasn't there? So I think I would be surprised if that happened.
And defensively, Spurs have looked more vulnerable since they've come back after the break. Do you think there is reason to hope that we'll get more than one shot on goal in the 95th minute?
Yeah, so the other hope that we've got is, and I think it's why we played better against Manchester United, since we became a counter-attacking side, we play better. Again, hence why we've had results against Chelsea and Manchester United earlier on in the season. We played better against teams where the onus is on them to attack because of their name and their reputation. Where we've become less effective is we don't demolish the teams that we used to, like the Swanseas and the whole cities of the world, because we sit too deep and we allow them to get comfortable. And I think we saw that with Palace and Newcastle. That they were there really to attack and press back, and once they realised that wasn't going to happen, so we are at the moment. Bizarrely, I would back us more to potentially get something out the Tottenham game than I would against Crystal Palace.
And fantasy territory, I know, but if we are to stay up, how many points do you think we need? How many wins do you think we actually need to get in the last 5?
2. The way everyone else is playing. That's the sad thing about this whole scenario. Everyone came back saying, "Oh, I think we're going to need 3, possibly 4 wins," and we were looking at Palace, Newcastle, Southampton, and then could we snatch anything at Everton or Wolves? I think we'll look back at the end of the season and be really surprised how many games we actually did have to win in the last 9, because I don't think it's going to be many at all.
And what have Spurs got left to play for as well? Because I'm not sure that there's anything other than a Europa League place on offer to them, really.
No. They got the pride, and they've always got that bizarre battle to finish above Arsenal in the North London League table. They've got that, I guess, that they keep one eye on. I think they've... I think they haven't got a lot to play for, and I think they're looking like they're not really enjoying the football that they're playing, which is... we're just waiting, aren't we, for the mid-season Mourinho meltdown, as he flounces off and then gets a top contract somewhere else.
Well, I remember last season's game. I mean, who could forget last season's game? And it feels like a long time since we had a player sent off against us.
Yeah.
Can you remember? Actually, was it that Spurs game, the last time that a player got dismissed against us? It doesn't feel like we've had any 11v10. Oh, Palace, wasn't it? Where we singularly failed to do anything.
Yeah, well, we wished he stayed on because we were looking... We were looking hard, but again, there you have it. When teams defend, so when Palace just defended, when we can't break down because we sit so deep, we cannot break teams down when they defend. It was the same against Wolves, who are also a counter-attacking side. It's very difficult for us. So, but no, that game was a fantastic game last season because it really did look if any side was going to win it. At times, it was them on the break with Lucas. Is it Lucas Moore? Yeah, I kept thinking, I can't believe we're going to lose to 9 men because there were a couple of times where he broke and beat 3 of our players, and I thought, please don't score. So it was just fantastic it was great that moment at the end with Nathan Ake was fantastic. And of course, Mark Travers, you're talking about should they drop Ramsdale for Boric? Well, Mark Travers had the game of his life, didn't he? So...
He did, and a bit of reverse symmetry. After that game last season, we went away and lost. We lost 5-3 to Palace, I think, immediately the game after.
Yeah.
So having conceded 5 the week before, maybe we're due a 1-0 win again. What do you reckon?
I think there's clutching at straws, Jeff.
Doesn't quite work.
Full marks to you because I'm now liking that theory.
Who knows? Well, look, thanks, Neil, for your time. Look forward to Thursday and catching up with you again. Your input as ever much appreciated. So let's see what Sam thinks about this crunch game.
Cheers, Jeff. Cheers, Neil. To be honest, I'm feeling pretty low at the moment. A number of factors. I mean, Spurs on Monday, they were not looking overly tasty, and their fans have been criticising their style at the moment, but they got the 3 points they needed. There was a bit of infighting as they came off at half time, but they got the result that they needed. My only solace comes in the fact that they've got the North London derby a few days later. Therefore, there may be a chance that they could rest some of their key players, but I don't really want to think about that because it's all got to be about us. But at the moment, the league position is not good. Watford were always going to beat Norwich, really. I mean, Norwich rooted to the bottom of the table, and it was a better performance, and they should have equalised to make it 2-2. But I mean, Welbeck's goal was world class, and there they are, 4 points ahead of us in the table. Really despondent. Shortly, I'm going to be speaking to Craig Beazley, who's coming in, and we're going to go over Eddie's press conference this morning and his thoughts about Eddie. And also, we'll go over the chosen 11 as we look forward to that Spurs match on Thursday night. But first, we're going to look at Peter Rutzler's tweets about the aforementioned press conference from Eddie Howe this morning at the Vitality Stadium. And this is what he had to say. So Eddie said that it's a difficult moment for us. It's been very difficult to take results. Personally, it's a period where I've been hurting, but nothing has affected my motivation to turn it round. He said on his motivation, you want to achieve, you want to do your very best for the football. I love this club so much. I've loved every part of it, and I want to do everything in my power to maintain the club's Premier League status. On Joshua King, he was quoted in the week saying, we're going to go down, but the quotes were taken out of context, said Eddie. They were made in Norwegian and the translation was directly that. It was if we continue to play like we are, and I agree with those comments. On the squad, Eddie said, I can see a lot of hurt in the dressing room. I can see players who really do care, the players that are determined to turn it around. And then he went on to say that about the fighting spirit, it's very difficult to define. The spirit's still there, but the thing since lockdown is we've struggled to find the belief that we will come back. Hopefully, the United game will change that. Well, it certainly needs to. He also spoke about our leaky defence and said the stats don't lie. We've always been a team that's conceded, but we've maintained our goal-scoring streaks to win us points. It's the points column that matters. Whatever we'd done had worked to a point. This year has been a bigger challenge in front of goal. Big time. In terms of team news, Steve Cook's improved, not sure on fitness. To me, that indicates he might be straight back in. Chris Mepham has had an injection on his knee, trying to avoid an operation. And finally, he talks about the other wins, of course, Watford won and then West Ham, etc. Eddie said one win for West Ham were perceived negatively. Suddenly now they're safe. A lot will depend on the next few games. We have to maintain our belief. I certainly do. So there we go. That was Eddie's press conference from this morning. He's saying the right things, but we need the team to do the right things. Now, as I said earlier, I'm joined by Craig Beazley, who is with me. Craig, how's it going?
Yeah, very well, thanks, Sam.
It's been a weird few days, hasn't it? We felt slight optimism after Man United and then witnessing Spurs looking a little bit dodgy at home against Everton, and then Watford pulling a result out of the bag against Norwich. And looking at that league table now, we're thinking, oh my God, we have to win.
I think it's the last chance saloon now. We've got to beat Spurs. There's no two ways about it, because we've got City coming up, Leicester, and Everton as well. So yeah, it's a must win.
Let's take a look at the league table then at the moment. Yeah, 27 points. Watford now on 31, and they've got another favourable game ahead of them as well. And we, of course, have got Spurs and then Leicester. A match against Man City after that. I mean, it's looking decidedly shady. I've got to say, and I do feel for Eddie. For the first time, I actually thought to myself that, Eddie is obviously integral to the club and he's pivotal and the club's built around him. I'm starting to think that might now be more of a psychological hindrance than a help to him. Because do you think Nigel Pearson and David Moyes are going to be going to bed at night worrying about the livelihood of the man in the club shop? I don't think so. Eddie's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. There's so much that we could lose, all the way down to the youth team setup as well. If we go down, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can pull out a miracle. But it's looking less and less likely at the moment.
Yeah, I said on a tweet that some people took out of context a little bit that anything other than a win will be the death knell in AFCB's funereal season. And I said, if we don't, pull a result out of the bag, the Premier League as a spectacle will be better off without us. Now, what I meant by that is we haven't showed much fight so far. And in previous seasons, you've seen teams have a go. And it feels like we're not doing that. And, we absolutely would deserve relegation based on what we're doing now, because we've showed absolutely no fight. And there's a spectacle. It's not very nice to see. And you want the Premier League, you want the top flight to be, full of the best teams. But at the moment, it doesn't seem to be. But what of Spurs, though? Did you see much of their match against Everton on Monday night?
Yeah, I think they're a funny team since Mourinho's come in. You don't know which team's going to turn up. In places they've been, I don't really know why they got rid of Pochettino. Okay, they had a few dodgy results, but the man that took them to their first Champions League final, it's a bit of a crazy decision. I don't know really what to expect from them. To be honest, against Everton, they weren't brilliant, but they still ground out the result. To be honest, Everton didn't look very good themselves. So there's a little bit of optimism there if it does go to the final game of the season, which unfortunately, if we are to pull through, I think it's probably going to have to, and we're just going to be on the edge of our seats for that final game.
For so long, we seem to be concentrating on other teams and what each other is doing, and we've been relying on other teams to lose. Watford winning could actually be just the psychological boost we need, because we've sort of floated along and copied everyone else's results. Well, now we need to win, and what better challenge than Spurs at home, a match which is winnable, isn't it?
It is. We won last year. Okay, Son had to go get sent off, which did help us along. I think there's a little bit of unrest in the camp as well, because I don't know if you saw much of it, but Loris and Son had a little bit of a disagreement. I think it was at half time, wasn't it, against Everton? And so they're not, I don't think they're 100% happy camp themselves. And hopefully they will rest players for the game against ourselves, because they will have that one eye on that Arsenal game. I sit opposite a Tottenham fan at work, and to be honest, he's not convinced with how they're doing at the moment. And they're a little bit like us, but at the other end of the table. There's a feeling that they're not really, giving the 110%. Their season has kind of petered out. However, they have got a lot more quality, and what we've got to do is we need to know we're in the last chance saloon. We've got to go for this game. We've got to throw the kitchen sink at them. To be honest, I didn't expect any favours off Norwich last night. I did watch a bit of it, and I think there was effort there from the Norwich players, which is what's annoying from my perspective, because against Newcastle, there was only one player really that was giving 110%. And I think that was Brooks. Danjuma, did okay. But yeah, we need to give, everybody needs to throw the kitchen sink at Tottenham. And hopefully we can get a positive result. I agree with you, Sam. Anything less than a win, and we're just going to be playing catch up. Because Man City's a write-off, I think. Although saying that, they can get, like the chap on the Tottenham TV was saying, Southampton got a result up there, but again, I hate to say it, but I think they've got a little bit more quality at the moment.
They do. And, we need to be exceptional, and Man City need to be poor for that combination of results to happen. And Saints have been on it recently. I mean, their defensive performance was absolutely fantastic. I mean, one thing that's just frustrating is that in the Watford-Norwich game, Watford weren't amazingly convincing, and Norwich should have equalised. But, they got a result, and it just shows one win. That could inspire so much confidence in that team. And if we got a win against Spurs, maybe we could carry it on against Leicester. And you never know, maybe we could get a point at Man City. And these little things, I mean, it is still within our grasp, but the team has got to react now. And, there's no more chances. We've had chances based on other teams failing, but this is it. After the last game, we were coming up with a chosen team, and Eddie's, of course, had his press conference this morning, and he alludes that Steve Cook might be back. And I think, we were suggesting diamond formations and everything in the throes of the kind of, the lack of euphoria that we were feeling after the match ended. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through it again and just... we'll start again. I mean, it seems like it's going to be a 4-4-2 based on what people are saying. Some people have been saying Boric over Ramsdale, but I think Ramsdale will get the nod again.
Yeah, you got to stick with Ramsdale. He's done very, very well this season. I don't think he's not really done much wrong. There's goals that you could say that he could have done better with, but he's still learning. And I think he's I think he's a shoo-in at the moment.
I put Ake there by default. There's not really much point in debating that. But then obviously you've got a three-way split now. I know that Mepham has, Eddie Howe said, had an injection. It sounds to me like he won't be in the equation. So it's just a case of Steve Cook or Lloyd Kelly. So you've got two options here, I suppose. Drop Steve Cook or put him on the bench. Put Lloyd Kelly where he was last time and keep Rico, or Lloyd Kelly on the left. What would you be doing?
I've actually gone with Lloyd Kelly on the left-hand side. I think, Cookie will come back and we'll be all guns blazing. I think he's our captain. I'd put him next to Ake. I'm sure, from knowing Steve Cook and meeting him in person, that would have been playing on his mind, the mistakes that he's made.
And I think we are short of players who, get it. And I know Steve Cook's not been brilliant recently in terms of performances, but, he mentally gets what this means. And I think it's important to have him in there. On the right-hand side, stick or twist, because Adam Smith, not been brilliant, but Jack Stacey's shown a lot of attacking impetus, but then he does give the ball away as well. So what would be your thoughts on this?
I thought Smithy was at fault for 3 of the goals. I've always rated Smithy since he first joined, but he seems low on confidence. And at this point in time, if this was at the start of the season, we could say, right, okay, we can give him a little bit of time. We can't at this point, and it shows how far he's dropped. Stacey, I think I would go with Stacey.
Yeah. Okay. No problem at all. So let's move on to the midfield then. If we are going to go a 4-4-2, well, shall we actually just go up front? Let's start off with, Callum Wilson's going to be back. He's probably going to be in, and I would assume that Josh King would be starting alongside him. Yeah,
there wasn't much that was really mentioned with regards to Josh King that I saw. To be honest, I haven't watched the press conference, but I've read Peter Rutzler's comments on it, and there was no real mention of it. There was more of mention of what Josh King come out with the other day, which I think is a fair point. I think it's a fair point. I didn't, knock Cookie when he come out with what he said the other day. I think actually they needed a kick up the backside, and Cookie, being the professional he is, he's frustrated as well as us fans at that performance. That Newcastle performance was dire.
Very bad.
I would say, if you remember back to the Huddersfield away game where we got beat 4-1, it was snowing. I was going to go up there, but managed to watch it on Sky. Did you go? Did you?
Yeah, mate, I did. It was a 3. We got the coach up, and it was a 3:30 coach from Dean Court. So we were waking up at like 2 a.m. There wasn't even any point in going to sleep. But I did it, and awful day. Yeah.
It was, Frano had an absolute mare from my memories as well of that day. But I'll say this, Frano, when he does have poor days, he always seems to pick up. He seems to use that as a bit of an impetus to push on. And for the next 4 or 5 games after that, I thought he was fantastic. He did really, really well. But yeah, that day was horrible. And I think the Newcastle performance, why I mentioned that, was probably on par. If not, would you say it was even a little bit worse?
Yeah, well, yeah, you could be right. You know, same scoreline, similar horrendous performance. So, one of the midfielders that come out with a lot of credit from that Man United game was Junior Stanislas. So, would you be starting him on the left?
It's a mix between him and Danjuma. I probably would go with Stanislas over Danjuma, probably just for experience.
But I mean, one thing I think about that performance is with that, he was feeding a lot off Lewis Cook's balls you know, over the top, and you know, but then loads of people are clamouring for Dan Gosling, and you know, what do you do when you've only got 3 players left and everyone's assuming that Brooks will, you know, go right in there? Or do you think he could maybe mix up? Because Lewis Cook did a great job on the right flank against Chelsea in our away match where we won 1-0. I mean, what about these remaining 3?
I'm a big fan of Gosling's, and you know, really, after his showing, he was only on there. Was it? I think about 10 minutes, wasn't he? He was the only player that, you know, in 10 minutes that did, you know, anything against Newcastle. After, and that was a weird substitution. Of course, Brooks and Danjuma going off that game, which didn't help. But you know, after that point, you know, Gosling was the only one that really jumped out to me. I would start him. I would start Gosling. You know, I would start Cook on the bench, but I would definitely say I don't know whether or not Gosling's got the full 90 minutes in him. So I would probably start Gosling. And I would say drop Lerma back a little bit. So do that diamond formation. Gosling a little bit advanced. Lerma just protecting the back 4. And then, of course, Brooks.
Although, I mean, some people have been saying that Brooks, you know, whilst Smith got a lot of criticism for his defending of those 3 goals that Man United scored in the first half, Brooks, you know, maybe equally to blame by the fact he didn't come back. I mean, would there be any scenario in your head whereby Brooks wouldn't start, or, you know, does he have to for you?
I think because we need to attack this game. We need to really throw the kitchen sink at it. So I think he's got to start. It's a fair point. He didn't cover or help Smith enough for my liking. But seeing as we need to get goals, I think we're gonna ship one, Sam. But we need to make sure that we're, you know, on the ball, can get those balls into the box, and there's no better person to do that than Brooks and Stanislas on the left hand side. So I would stick with him, mate.
Yeah, for Spurs, who should we be looking out for? Is it just a case of take your pick, really, do you think?
Son, of course. A couple of years back, I think it was it 4-1 that they beat us. We played quite well. Stanislas scored the goal to put us in the lead. And then from that point onwards, Son run the show. That's why it was quite nice the following season, you know, that he got sent off. You know, he could do that again. But like I say, they're not a happy camp. I don't think Spurs. You never know what to expect from a Mourinho team. They do ship goals, but they are good on the attack. They are having strength.
I think this, you know, reading a lot on Twitter about the how Spurs fans, and speaking with Ben on WeAreTottenhamTV and a lot of fans' reactions, they're unhappy with how things are at the moment. But on the pitch, whilst they had that spat at half time, they seem to, you know, mend themselves somewhat. And, you know, Jose Mourinho was saying it's a brilliant thing when players, you know, argue like they do, because it stirs a reaction. I just think, you know, maybe it's an advantage to them playing behind closed doors, so they don't have any, negative feelings from the fans, and they are grinding out results, albeit they didn't against Sheffield United. Oh, it's going to be a tough one, and a fast start is needed, isn't it, mate? And we need to get on that score sheet, but we need to score again, because we don't. Against Man United, we almost scored too early, didn't we?
Yeah, most definitely. I think we need 9 points, and I was speaking to Kirk about that. I think we need 9 points out of 15, and I think the games that you can earmark for those is Southampton, Everton. And
one of Leicester and Spurs, maybe.
Yeah, Leicester haven't been great. I've got to say that Leicester have been a bit poor. However, they have still got quality. Of course, you got Vardy up front. We could do with him getting suspended, but
yeah, that would be ideal. They really would.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is Craig Beazley's team then. So Ramsdale, Kelly, Ake, Steve Cook, Jack Stacey, and then Stanislas, Lerma, Gosling, Brooks with King and Wilson up front. The only question for me is maybe, who's going to spread those balls out to Stanislas, who was doing that so effectively. But, Lerma's got a pass in him. Maybe he can, take on some of that responsibility. And Steve Cook's exactly, not exactly, not known for doing that as well. So, yeah, at this point, Craig, I'm going to ask you the question, but can I?
Yes.
I mean, what's the point in even doing these? But what's your prediction?
Let's
go an optimistic one, if possible.
Yeah. The heart says 2-1. The head is probably saying 1-1, which is no good for us. So I'm hoping the heart wins.
So, mate. Bloody
and
AFC.
Yeah, we've just got to be optimistic. I think it's the last chance saloon. If we get beat against Spurs, even a win against Leicester, we're still going to be behind Watford. And looking at their running, it is slightly easier, but they're not convincing. They're not convincing. They were playing a poor Norwich team, a Norwich team that were giving their all. But devoid of confidence. To be honest, is it Ida? Should have scored at the end.
How did he not? It was like Gaza in Euro 96, and unbelievable. It was exactly the same against Germany. But Craig, it's been a pleasure to have you on once again, mate.
And you as well, mate. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No worries at all. And thank you also to Jeff and Neil Dawson for earlier as well. And also Peter Rutzler for the tweets from The Athletic. Do remember to subscribe there for the latest AFC Bournemouth content. So what do you think? We've seen Craig's team. Pop your team in the comments below and in the descriptions. And once again, we'll see you after the game. We say this every time, but we hope it's a positive one. Anyway, up the cherries, and we'll see you in the next video.